The psychiatric ward had always carried a hum of tension, like an elastic band pulled too tight, but never quite snapping. The nurses knew the rhythm, the shuffle of slippers on linoleum, the muffled voices behind locked doors, the occasional sharp outburst that echoed down the hall like a crack of thunder. They knew their patients, or so they believed. Every file, every face, every name was etched into their routines. But one night shifted all of that, turning routine into chaos. It began quietly, as disasters often do. A flicker in the hallway light, a temporary power surge that knocked out half the floor's cameras. 2 orderlies were occupied at the far end of the wing, distracted by a combative patient. In the brief gap of attention, a man named Carter slipped through the crack of opportunity. He was tall, his frame built from years of hard labor before his breakdown had landed him here. He wasn't the loudest patient, nor the one who screamed into the night. He was watchful, calculating, his eyes always moving even when his body appeared still. Carter had noticed the small details. Which nurses carried keys, which doors clicked shut and which took an extra tug, how long it took security to respond when an alarm went off. He carried those details in silence, storing them like matches waiting for the right strike. That night, the strike came. The emergency light flickered once more, and the cameras went black. The corridor dimmed to half power. Carter's door had been left slightly ajar after medication rounds, the latch not fully catching. He slipped through with the stealth of someone who had rehearsed this moment in his head for weeks. The hinges didn't creak, and his bare feet made no sound on the polished floor. The nurses at the station, 3 of them, were busy. Megan was updating charts, her pen scratching over paper. Denise was on the phone with security about the outage. Luis was restocking a cart of supplies, humming faintly to himself. None of them noticed Carter's shadow moving against the far wall until it was too late. He moved with sudden violence. Carter grabbed the nearest rolling chair and shoved it hard, knocking Megan backward. Denise dropped the phone and screamed, and Luis lunged for the panic button on the wall. Carter was faster. He wrenched the supply cart sideways, spilling gauze and syringes across the tiles, blocking the way. With one powerful sweep, he shoved the crash bar on the heavy door to the break room and forced all 3 nurses inside. The door slammed, and Carter jammed a heavy oxygen tank against the handle, trapping them in. The muffled pounding of fists on the other side filled the hall, but Carter only breathed steadily. For the first time in months, he was on the outside of the locked door. Inside the cramped break room, panic set in fast. Denise clutched her chest, her voice breaking as she cursed the outage. Megan scrambled to her feet, already scanning the room for something, anything they could use to push the door free. Luis checked his pockets. No phone, no radio. Everything was outside, left on the nurse's desk. "We need to stay calm," Megan hissed, forcing herself to sound steady though her hands shook. "He doesn't have long. Security does sweeps every 15 minutes. They'll notice." But even as she said it, they all knew that 15 minutes in Carter's hands could mean disaster. Outside, Carter walked the hall like a predator testing the boundaries of his new terrain. He peered through windows, tested the strength of locked supply cabinets. His breathing echoed against the walls. The red exit sign glowed faintly at the far end, but he didn't run. He wasn't leaving yet. He wanted something first. In the break room, the pounding had slowed. Megan pressed her ear to the door, trying to catch sound. Denise whispered prayers under her breath, tears streaking her face. Luis finally shoved the vending machine, straining with every muscle, trying to budge it toward the door. It scraped against the floor, but the oxygen tank was wedged too tight. Then, footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Carter was back at the door. "You locked us in," Megan called through the metal, her voice sharp but even. "What do you want?" "Talk to us for a moment." Silence. Then Carter's voice came, deep and unsettling in its calmness. "I just wanted to see how it feels," he said. "Being on the outside and you locked up feels fair?" The words chilled them. "You're angry," Megan tried again, her training forcing her to stay controlled. "I get that. But this won't last. Security will come." "I know," Carter said. "That's why I have to move fast." The sound of retreating steps echoed down the hall. The nurses' fear turned frantic. They pressed against the small window of the break room, straining to see. Carter had reached the end of the corridor. He picked up a fire extinguisher, hefted it like a weapon. Then he slammed it into the glass of a supply cabinet. The crash exploded through the ward. Glass rained down as he reached inside, pulling out metal instruments, bandage scissors, clamps, anything sharp enough to threaten. Megan's stomach dropped. He's arming himself. Luis finally managed to wedge the vending machine tighter against the door. "We can't just sit here," he muttered. "If he gets to another patient..." They all knew what that meant. Carter moved methodically, smashing another cabinet. He dragged a chair to the middle of the hall, sitting calmly, tools gleaming in his hands. The ward had gone eerily quiet. Patients peered through the slits of their doors, their faces pale with a mix of fear and fascination. Carter tilted his head back and laughed, a sound that bounced unnaturally through the corridor. Then he stood and hurled the fire extinguisher at the overhead light, shattering it into darkness. Sparks fizzed before the emergency backup hummed on again, bathing the hall in sickly red glow. In the break room, Megan seized the moment of noise. She grabbed the phone Denise had dropped earlier. The line was dead. The wires had been torn in the scuffle. Denise pressed her fists into her eyes, trembling. Then came the distant sound of boots. Security, finally making their round. Carter heard it too. His head snapped toward the end of the hall where voices called out. Without hesitation, he yanked open the utility closet, dragging something heavy, a metal mop bucket on wheels. He shoved it toward the approaching guards, water sloshing. One guard slipped hard, crashing to the ground, his radio skittering away. Carter lunged, grabbing the radio before the second guard could react. The scuffle was brutal, echoing with the thud of fists and boots. Then silence. The nurses held their breath. "Tell me you heard that," Luis whispered. Megan pressed her forehead against the cold door. He took their radio. The crackle of static confirmed it. Carter's voice came faintly, distorted but chilling through the airwaves. "This floor is mine now." Chaos deepened. Alarms rang faintly in the distance as security scrambled to regroup, but the locked wards slowed their access. Carter dragged the unconscious guard toward the nurse's station, propping him against the desk like a grotesque display. He paced back and forth, muttering to himself, testing the feel of power he hadn't tasted in months. Inside the break room, Megan forced herself to breathe steadily. "We're not waiting anymore. Help isn't coming fast enough." "We're getting out." Luis and Denise stared at her, wide-eyed. "How?" "Through the ceiling." She pulled over a chair, eyeing the square tile overhead. With effort, she pushed it upward, revealing a crawl space of pipes and dust. The climb was brutal. Denise sobbed quietly as Luis boosted her into the crawl space. Megan followed, shoving ceiling panels aside. The break room fell away below them. They crawled on hands and knees, the metal biting into their palms, their breathing loud in the cramped dark. The vents carried sound. Carter's footsteps pacing, his muttering, the faint groan of patients banging on their doors for release. Then Megan froze. Directly ahead, light filtered through another vent, revealing the hallway below. Carter was standing right beneath them. He clutched the stolen radio, speaking into it with strange calm. "You lock me up. You drug me. You watch me like an animal. But look at me now." He paused, as though savoring the silence. "I'm the one watching you." The nurses lay motionless above him, praying the metal didn't creak. Minutes crawled by. Carter finally moved, dragging the guard's flashlight with him. The beams swept the walls. Megan gestured forward, pushing Denise and Luis to crawl faster. They reached another ceiling vent that opened above the staff bathroom. With a hard shove, Luis kicked it loose, dropping into the empty room below. One by one, they landed quietly. For the first time, they weren't trapped. Megan whispered urgently, "We need to get to the control room." Unlock the ward from there. They crept into the hall. The broken glass crunched faintly underfoot, and every sound felt like a gunshot. At the far end, Carter was dragging the mop bucket again, muttering to himself. His back was turned. The nurses sprinted, hearts pounding, weaving between shadows until they reached the secured door. Megan swiped her badge. Denied. She cursed under her breath, her hands slick with sweat. Carter's voice rang out. "Where are you going?" They spun. He was closer than they realized, his grin wide, tools gleaming in his fists. Luis shoved Megan and Denise through the doorframe, bracing himself. "Go!" Carter lunged. Luis caught his arm, the two of them crashing hard against the wall. The sound echoed like thunder. Megan screamed, grabbing Denise and dragging her toward the stairwell. Security was there this time. Boots thundered up the stairs, radios blaring. Carter shoved Luis aside, but the guards swarmed him with practiced force. Tasers cracked, batons struck. Carter roared, thrashing violently, but numbers overwhelmed him. Finally, cuffs clamped down, his body forced to the ground. The nurses collapsed in the stairwell, sobbing with relief. Luis stumbled after them, his lip bleeding but alive. Alarms quieted one by one as order returned. Carter was dragged back into restraints, sedated, wheeled off under heavy guard. His reign of control was over as quickly as it had begun. The psych ward never returned to its old rhythm. Every nurse walked the halls with sharper eyes, keys clutched tighter, doors double-checked. The incident became a warning passed to new staff. Complacency was dangerous here. Megan, Denise, and Luis returned to their posts, bruised but unbroken. They had survived the night Carter broke loose. And though the silence of the ward returned, it was never the same silence. It was heavier, edged with memory, carrying the echo of footsteps in the dark.